Welcome back to Inside Princeton Vikings Athletics here on VikeNation.org and ESPN Media powered by Sidearm Sports. My name is Jason Griefer. Happy to be joined once again by Princeton Athletic Director Joe Roberts. Joe, good to talk to you once again. We got a lot to get to here in the show because there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in and around Princeton Athletics at this juncture. And let's start off with the cross-country teams here. Busy couple of weeks coming up here. They've got the run up at Eaton this coming Saturday, but we also do have the Princeton Invitational coming up on the 25th. So we'll go ahead and talk about that now and then recap it on the next podcast. But just want to have you take us through the logistics of this event this year compared to last year and how everything is expected to operate there. And then also what kind of community response do you anticipate that we'll see as we get closer to it?
Sure, absolutely, Jason, and good morning as well. You know, I think the 25th is going to be really exciting for our boys and girls cross-country teams. We get to go head over to Landmark Christian's campus. It's a beautiful setting for cross-country. It's got some really good contour to it. Not quite like what they had this past weekend at Mason, where they're jumping over bales of hay and running through creeks, which I absolutely love. I think that's so exciting. But just a really great layout. It's really viewer friendly for spectators because they can get out into the fields, they can spread out, they can see the kids and really set their pace. We've got a lot of good entries that are starting to come in. I think we'll be right around 20 teams, 25 teams, respectfully. It's going to be our senior day where we'll recognize all of our senior runners. We're going to have great weather. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. It's going to be an absolute gorgeous Saturday like it was last year. A little bit crisp and cool in the morning, perfect for the runners as the afternoon goes. We've got a DJ coming back. So there's going to be a really good environment set up there. And just the folks at Landmark have been so supportive of our school, so supportive of our running program, allowing us to use that site. It just plays into everything we're trying to do with building our cross-country program. So really looking forward to it.
Be keeping an eye on that, and we'll maybe look for a playlist or two on social media from the DJ providing the entertainment there. But I'm also wondering there to that point, how important that is for you when you're putting an event together like this and organizing this with the coaching staff to try and lighten the mood and make it a fun event for the kids.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I think Coach Cobb and Coach Campbell and Coach Benson do an amazing job of laying those details out, just ensuring that we have that fun environment. That the DJ works at our middle school, so he's around the kids. He has relationships there where he sees them on a consistent basis, and he remembers a lot of the older runners as they move into the high school side of things. But creating that fun environment for all of the students and for all of the spectators, I think that plays into it a bunch. Our booster club will have concessions that day. I think Kona Ice is coming, but you've got to lighten that mood a little bit. And I'll share a very quick story. Yeah. Last year, the DJ, and it's in his playlist, that song, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Yeah.
It's in his playlist. And as the boys varsity race is finishing, that song is playing as they're coming through the finish line. Now, you can take that in a multitude of ways. They just finished running this tremendous race and kids, they're falling down, we're getting them up and walking them through or what have you. But that song is playing. And, from one hand, people are like, oh, that's a little bit insensitive. But on the other hand, the kids are like, yeah, we're really hitting the floor during that song. So, you got to have a little bit of sense of humor as you go. And again, we're building for our conference championship for the district meet and moving on into the state meet. So this kind of breaks that monotony up a little bit, allows us to put a quality race on for all of the runners that are coming to participate and really give them an opportunity to get ready.
That is a fantastic way to finish a long run like that. And I know from my perspective, if I were running in that race, which I wouldn't because that's too far to run. I don't like driving as far as they run, but that would be quite a funny way to finish it. So kudos to everyone there for making an event like that so fun. And hopefully that'll be the case coming up on the 25th there. Let's switch gears and let's move on to the soccer pitch now. And let's talk about your boys team right now, sitting at 2-1-2 on the season. And that also means right now, if you look inside the GMC, just one of three unbeaten teams left in the league right now, alongside Lakota East and Mason. We've talked a lot about Cole Walker on the show and dating back to last year and how good he's been. He continues to impress this year as well. But something I've noticed in looking back to his numbers from last year compared to this year is he's not as busy in the goal. Last year, you look at his numbers, he was averaging nearly 7 saves per game. Right now, that number is under 4 saves a night. He's still performing very well. He's just not seeing the volume of shots being directed at him thus far in the campaign. So I'm wondering, from that perspective, what has Coach Keespace said about the performance of the defensive line in front of him that has turned things around in that regard so that not all the pressure is on Cole to make 7, 8, 10 saves a night?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we touched on last season. If I remember distinctly us talking week in and week out about the ball needs to be at the other end of the field. And the more we can keep the possessions down at the other end of the field, the more opportunities we had to score. But what does it do? It takes the pressure off on the defensive end because we're shifting everybody to the other side. And I think that's what our soccer program has done a very good job in the early stages of this season in working on transitioning that ball to the other end of the field. And I think that we've got a lot of soccer left. There's no question of that. Mm-hmm. But if we can continue to provide opportunities for our offense to score, get more shots on goal, and keep the ball on that half on a consistent basis, you're going to run into situations. The other team's going to score. Yeah. Without question. And Cole's currently sitting there with 2 shutouts on the season so far. And I think that from a defensive standpoint, I think we're pretty sound, but the ball's going to come to the other end. And we know that, but we want the ball to get down there much less than it is on a consistent basis, giving that defense a chance to set themselves, play a solid midfield advantage, and just really give our kids a chance to attack. And I think, with junior Landon Brooks, he's got 2 sitting second in assists in the league right now. If we can continue to find open spots, I think we're going to have a lot more attempts on goal. And I think that, our league right now is kind of balanced. There's really not anyone that's going to separate themselves in soccer this year. I think we're a little bit on a level side of things. So I think we really have a chance to be in that middle of the top half of the field as we move out of the season and then into sectional play.
Is that something that the coaching staff has recognized at this point as well and communicating to the boys that, hey, this isn't a year where Mason, for example, is just going to run right through everyone, that they really have a good shot, as you said, just to not only get to the top half of the league, which they're in now, but also stay there?
Yeah, I think that's the mental conversation they have. I don't think they draw into it as much. When we first were talking about the start of the season, one of the things we knew right away is that striker position really wasn't going to be solidified as early as it is now. And so I think the coaches have really done a very good job of developing and trying to find that key and trying to rotate through a lineup to get some consistency there. I think their message is simply, we've got to play our brand of soccer, and we've got to continue to hone in on what we know our strengths are and try to find the other team's weaknesses. I think as we move along, this week will be a big week with Fairfield. I think we'll see some.
Yeah. And let's move on to the girls side of things right now. Tougher start for the girls thus far in the season. They've played a tough schedule, but I do want to get your thoughts on the win against Middletown back on the 9th. The team gets down early, 1-0, and then comes roaring back and scores 3 straight goals to get the win there. And especially coming off the first 3 matches of the year where they were shut out in all 3 there. I'm wondering how good that must have felt for not only for you, but the coaches and for the girls to see the ball finally get put into the net, be able to add on to the lead and be able to close out and get a win in the league.
I think that's something that just totally changed the attitude or the mode of the girls. First off, it was senior night, so it was emotionals for those senior student athletes that we have. And I think that being able to come out and play a solid brand of soccer that night, get a W against a very good Middletown program, I think that really kind of sets the tone. Now, we know that playing Roger Bacon, we've got Ross in a non-league coming up this weekend. We have, on top of what we do on a consistent basis in the league, which again, there's really not a true separator today in the league in girls soccer. We're at that stage right now where everybody's kind of in the middle of the pack and on a level playing field, if you will. But I think our non-league really does prepare us for the league, but it also beats us up. I was talking to some of the girls after the match on Saturday at the Springdale Community Bash, and and they're sore, they're tired. It's the middle of September, if you will. It's still hot outside, and and they kind of need a little downtime. So I think this week is a good week for us to have a small break. We're going to be able to play Fairfield tomorrow here, and then we'll have Ross at home on Saturday, but that gives them a little bit of time to maybe stretch their legs and rest a little bit as we move into a pretty difficult stretch starting next week.
Yeah, really starting to hit the meat of the schedule as far as the GMC goes in the next couple of weeks there. So we'll really get a good idea of where we stand in league play at that point. But nevertheless, really nice rallying win against Middletown to get that first win in league play for sure. Let's switch gears. Let's move on to the golf course here, and a busy 2 weeks coming up for your golf programs, and an important 2 weeks coming up. The girls will be in the GMC championships this week. The boys will go for team and possible individual titles next week. So a really important stretch right here. We're really trying to make sure we're peaking at the right time. Give us a preview of these events for the girls and then for the boys, and perhaps where you and the coaches see the best opportunities to try to contend.
Well, I think, it starts on the girls' side with Caitlin Randolph, our junior, who's kind of leading our league with our team with a 53 average. And then junior Ariana Watson and Amanda Tullis are right behind her. And then our freshman phenom, Reese Nelson's coming right in and playing into a good role. But one of the keys that I just said there, 3 juniors and a freshman. We're young. Our girls golf program is young. We don't have seniors. We don't have a lot of depth. We've got 4 that are currently out there, maybe a 5th one that might be able to come along and put in some time for us. But Coach Herb's done a very good job of keeping those girls together. Conversely, on the boys' side, Peyton Leach is still on a roll with a 38 average. But from both a boys and a girls standpoint, one of the things when you look on the GMC website and you look at golf, we haven't played very many rounds. Mm-hmm. I think we've averaged maybe 47 rounds total. And you're looking at some teams that, like some of our leaders have gotten 108 holes in already. And so we haven't had enough rounds to really put ourselves in a position where we're going to separate ourselves as a team. So we're going to rely on some of our individuals to shoot low numbers, to put themselves in a position where they can get themselves in the right spot to be where they need to be. We have got to find a way to continue to get our student athletes, our golfers, more rounds. And that's by getting in some more 18-hole tournaments, some invites, something like that. A lot of that stuff, and the golf teams, they do all that. August 1st is the first day, but by August 3rd, they're allowed to play matches. So, you get a bunch of invites and 18-hole tournaments and things like that done well before your school year starts. That gives those student athletes some consistency and some repetitions that they need. But really looking forward to tomorrow and Wednesday for our girls out at Walden Ponds. We know what a beautiful golf course and a beautiful layout that is. And then again, next week for our boys golf team as well. Want to get them out there if they can for some practice, and then really just see where it takes them, because that's also a site for our district tournament as we move forward too. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, really good indicator of where they can be and make adjustments. As you said, looking forward to that postseason there out at the same venue there for sure. Let's switch gears and let's move on to the tennis courts. And so far this season, and it's maybe not necessarily a big surprise, the non-conference has been more friendly than the conference schedule, but we always know how big of a deal that tennis is in the GMC, maybe as big a deal as compared to any other conference really in the state of Ohio. You could really make that argument for sure. But nevertheless, we look at the schedule coming up as it stands right now. Got 1 win in conference play right now we just saw against Fairfield, a 3-2 win. But we also have matches coming up against Hamilton and Middletown, who are both winless on the season, ahead of a big one on the 21st, obviously against Mason. And we all know how good Mason is. We've talked about that here before on the program. But I'm wondering right there with Hamilton and Middletown, are the coaches looking at these 2 matches as saying at this point, these are matches we should take care of business of before we get Mason and before we get Sycamore the following week?
Oh, I definitely think Coach Bruni, that is completely in his mindset right now. We've got to go in here and grab 2 wins, but not only wins, but I think they need to be convincing wins. For the mental and for the emotional side of tennis, I think that the girls need to come out and they need to really be aggressive in both of those matches. and, for the lack of a better term, put them away early so that we can get our bodies recovered and rested, because we know that the gauntlet is in front of us after that. But it is also going to put us in a position, because then we'll have 3 wins in the league. If we can grab those 2, it puts us into a position where when it comes time for some seeding, as we look at the GMC tournament, we're going to be up a little bit more in that middle side of that bracket. And that could help our kids, maybe they draw a bye the first round, if you will. And then they, that gives them a chance to even get a little bit more rest, get them a little bit more prepared, and get them set and ready to go as we move through. And then you can win a couple matches. And the next thing you know, you're playing in the finals. And it's all becomes down to that positioning when you have to go, and you don't really want to necessarily have to go through that back draw, if you will, in order to do that. So I think that obviously our dynamic doubles duo with Carissa Coons and Alyssa Hardman, I think that's going to really play well to what we do. I think Junior Paris Harris kind of if we're going to have her play one singles, I think that's going to be really critical to see what coach wants to do as he kind of continues to mix and match that lineup a little bit, and put the right players out there at the right time to put us in position to win.
But still very important, these 2 matches coming up. Is he with that mindset of having to take care of business? Is the message yet being portrayed to the girls that, hey, if we take care of business here, it's going to help our GMC seeding, and potentially, as you said, depending on the draw, could set us up maybe for a run all the way to the final?
Yeah, I think he started having that conversation after we got that win against Fairfield. We're sitting at 5-5 total, for the season overall record. And what you said, Jason, is 100% right. We start the season in that non-league rotation, that non-league round, if you will. And we got some great wins. We got some great matches under our belt and got them set. And then, obviously we hit that skid there in the conference play. But then when you grab that win against Fairfield, that kind of shows the girls that, hey, listen, now's the time. This is where it becomes important. This is where it comes to looking at us because we know where we are with Mason. We know where we are with Sycamore. That doesn't mean we lay down and quit against them. That just means we know how deep they are compared to how we are currently playing. And in our front line, we're really strong. So let's just match them up correctly and see what it goes. And, and you just battle with them. But we've got to set the tone with these next 2 matches in order to have some confidence going into those 2.
And if you take care of business in these next 2, you've won 3 out of 4 in the league going into that last week against Mason and Sycamore, who interesting way to sort of wind down the conference season with those 2 hammers. But nevertheless, you could be on a 3 out of 4 streak going into that. So we'll see how they take care of business on all those fronts on our next program here. Let's jump into the pool real quick. And both the boys and the girls water polo teams continue to be very, very busy right now. The boys just wrapped up playing in the Ohio Cup this past weekend. The girls took on Milford this past week. They're going to the Ohio Cup this upcoming weekend. So for those who don't know, as far as the Ohio Cup goes, and I know we've touched on this in the past here on the program in a brief form, but I just want you to kind of take us through the Ohio Cup, kind of the ins and outs of it, and also how big of a litmus test this is right in the middle of the season, and a possibility where you could see these same teams down the road in the state tournament.
Yeah. So, Thomas Worthington does an amazing job of hosting that event. It's outdoors, which kind of changes some of the mode there. And that really is a great way for us to see where we are in terms of across the state for water polo, because everyone's typically there. Obviously, we know that, water polo, the numbers that participate in water polo are much smaller, but everyone's there. And I was talking to senior Tommy Burton last night, actually, and he was so pumped because of how they did last night. And they got a great win against Sycamore up there. And that really sets the tone for what we're about to do leading into coming up for where we're going to host the Packer Classic. What we're going to do is we move forward with Walnut Hills this week and going right down the list. I think that, the boys come away with a lot of positives. They come away with knowing that it gives them confidence to move them into the postseason, if you will, because it is right around the corner. And as it sits right now, we're going to host the state championships again here at Princeton. So they know what they have to do in order to be in our water come at the end of the season. So Coach T has an extremely young team with not much experience, but they've gained that experience pretty quick being in the water. I think the wraparound, as much as the majority of us wanted water polo to stay in the spring, I think for this particular setting, because of the number of seniors we lost last year, that wraparound season for them, if you will, has really helped our underclassmen and given them a lot of quality water time. And it's really helped our confidence. I think we're going to really be good here as the stretch run comes.
With that being said, with the lack of experience you have back on this team and all the seniors you lost last season with the boys, does this make this Ohio Cup weekend even more valuable because you've had some kids who really haven't gone through the trials and the tribulations of that over the last couple of years?
It 100% does, because they needed to see what St. Charles was like. They needed to see what Thomas Worthington could do. They needed to see Upper Arlington and New Albany in a different setting and a different environment. They needed to see those teams so that they could be prepared, as we head into, I believe it's this coming weekend, we head to the Napoleon Invite.
So we'll see how much that experience pays off. Certainly going forward thus far for the team. It's a young team, but still a lot of things to look forward to coming up here. And of course, who doesn't want to play for a state championship in the home pool? So that would be a nice little added bonus for this young team, but still got to get there first. Let's move on to the volleyball courts and early trek in the season thus far for the team here as well. You've just got a couple of league matches in there, most with Coleraine and Middletown, and splitting those two. So we're 1-1 in the league, but the way things shaping up right now, we've got Fairfield, Oak Hills, Lakota West coming up in the next couple of weeks, and also a non-conference trip to Edgewood this coming Saturday. And with the way things set up through volleyball in the GMC, we only go through the league once. Some leagues actually have you play twice through the league, but the GMC we only go through once. And so with that, in this coming stretch here, are the coaches already having an eye on the league standings, or is that going to come more after these next 3 league matches and they get a better feel not only for themselves in the league, but also the league itself?
Yeah, I don't think Coach Sparks and her staff are currently looking at where they're sitting in the league, because we've only had 2. I think that's going to come after you get about 3 or 4 matches under your belt and really test yourself and see where you are. And I think, with 1 match this week with Fairfield, that's going to be a good litmus for us. I think we need to be 2-1 moving into the weekend so that we can get things started next week in full go with the conference. Really excited about what junior Brooklyn Leach is doing. Currently 5th in the GMC with 120 assists, but on the flip to that, 120 assists in volleyball right now, when your team has had 10 matches, if you will, 9 matches, we need to get her in that 150, 170 side of things right now. We really need to start passing the ball and moving it around a little bit more. I think Coach Sparks is really honing in on making sure we understand our rotations, making sure that we pinpoint what we're trying to do to cover the ball, if you will. And I think that the key to it also is making sure that we're serving it on a consistent basis. So it's going to be a really great week for them this week, because, again, we're in that what I consider a midpoint, if you will, where we've had a lot of matches early, and it's been a long season for some, but we only have 1 match this week. And then we're going to take the girls down to the University of Cincinnati and let them watch the UC Xavier crosstown serve out match, if you will, and let them see some great experiences with college volleyball and have a chance to do that. Then we'll come back and we'll go to Edgewood on Saturday for a non-league, and then really kind of get into the mix of it. So excited about the direction we're going. I want to brag a little bit real quick. This past Saturday, our JV and varsity hosted Talawanda, and our freshmen were scheduled to host Talawanda, but Talawanda couldn't make it. So we picked up at the last minute Mount Notre Dame, and we know what kind of volleyball presence Mount Notre Dame is going to bring. But our freshman girls, and we were down our setter due to an injury, our freshman girls showed some tremendous grit and some tremendous savvy against those girls. And yes, we lost 2-0. However, they didn't quit. And that to me just really shows that our program is growing the way it needs to go. And Coach Sparks has done a great job of building some great foundations. And likewise, our JV program. Our JV program fought tooth and nail Saturday against Talawanda. It was really great to watch.
That's a big deal, because especially with when you see MND across on the other side of the floor. Everyone knows how good their varsity program is. I think last I saw they were ranked number 1 or number 2, maybe in the country.
Yeah.
But I'm how to that point there, how much were the coaching staff talking about the fact that the girls didn't just immediately walk in and see MND and go, oh boy, what do we do here? They went at it with them.
Yeah, they did. And I think part of it had to do with the fact that maybe our girls just didn't know, because it was so last minute. I picked them up late Thursday night, early Friday morning to add just so that we could fill a match. And I told our coaches, I said, and Coach Blythe, our freshman coach, she's like, let's play them. Let's go. And, Coach Sparks is like, Joe, MND, really? And I said, hey, listen, it's better them to get a match in than to sit and not be able to play today. Let's go out and get the girls on the floor and let's get them some time to play. I think that's more important than it is anything. And they just walked in. They had some great confidence. It was Saturday morning and, hey, throw the ball up in the air and let's go. So it was good to watch. It was a good Saturday of volleyball for all 3 levels. I thought our varsity just keeps on battling and it takes hit after hit and getting after it. And of course, like I said, JV and freshmen had some great opportunities on Saturday.
A very good, good showing of themselves for sure that entire day here. Let's wrap up as we tend to do here on the fall season with your football team, and not the greatest welcoming into league play this year with the 24-0 loss to Lakota West this past Friday after taking out Dublin Kaufman to make up for the Hamilton game that got wiped out. But nevertheless, here I'm looking at the way things have shaken out thus far on the season, and to me anyway, I'm looking at this result against Lakota West more of an indicator of how good Lakota West is compared to maybe Princeton not being as strong as we normally see. Is that what you're seeing as well, that you just ran into a really, really good Lakota West team?
Well, what you just said is 100% right, Jason. I mean, Lakota West is really, really good. I mean, they are. With that said, there were some opportunities there that our players did not take advantage of. Mm-hmm. There were some opportunities there where our coaches probably missed an idea that they could have changed a few things. And I think Coach Parker and his entire staff, from what I watched and observed Saturday morning during film session, I sat with them for a while during the defensive meetings. They know that, and they also realize that we may see West again. Yeah. And I wouldn't mind that. I don't think our kids would mind that either. So hats off to Coach Bolden for his 150th win. And Friday night was just a great environment. But we got to pick ourselves up. We got Fairfield in front of us this Friday. It's been close to a month since we've had a home football game. And so looking forward to Friday night and bringing Fairfield over here and resetting it and getting it started. At the end of the day, still extremely excited with the way offensively we played. Sophomore TJ Engelman, he continues to rack up the yards. He's got 665 total on the season. 565 of them are rushing yards. Senior Isaiah Meyer with 209 receiving, and senior Rodney Harris currently 9th in receptions with 154 yards. So really, really excited about what we're doing offensively. And it's not that I wasn't excited about what we're doing defensively either, because, when you look at senior Anas Leigman leading the league with 5 sacks, that's really, really kind of where we are. And just behind him is Anas is McQueese Humphrey Grace with 4. So, I mean, the 2 sack leaders in the league are Princeton players. Mm-hmm. And now 5 and 4, but we've only had 1 league game so far that we've been able to play. We've got to do a little bit more closing those gaps. We've got to do a little bit more about playing with emotion, if you will, and putting those guys into a position where they just kind of that backyard football feel. We gave up that big pass at the beginning of the game, and it almost took the wind out of our sails. But as the high school principal, Mr. Ballmer, always says, we have a lot of resilience. And I felt like no matter what the score was on Friday night, those kids did not quit. They had tremendous resilience throughout the game. And they could have easily started dropping their heads and pointing fingers at one another, but they did not do that. And that's tremendous credit to our coaching staff for keeping those guys in their mindset, allowing them to play with the emotion that they did have, want them to have a little bit more emotion out there. But at the end of the day, we've got to get back on the field for practice and get after it and see where we are this week.
Yeah, and there's also going to be instances as this GMC season goes along where you're going to run into instances like that where you get down early and things seem like they're going against you, and you've got to find a way to rally because, as you well know, Joe, nobody in this league is going to feel sorry for you if you start to hang your head down there. So, a good chance, as you said, to get back on the home field this coming Friday to take on Fairfield. You'll have a road trip to Oak Hills coming up on next Friday to close out the month of September before an active month of October gets things set up right there. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll also be looking forward to it in our next conversation over the next couple of weeks, Joe. Really appreciate your time here today. A lot of great stuff.
Yeah, Jason, I'll close out what you just said because nobody, is a dear friend of my grandparents. Bob Porter used to say, we don't baby nobody. And that's kind of what happens in the GMC in every single sport. There's no time for crying in baseball, if you will. There's no time for laying down and feeling sorry for one another. We got to pick ourselves up. And that's the beauty of our conference. That's the beauty of the schools and the competition that we have and just shows our student how well our student athletes are committed and dedicated to what we're doing. So it's going to be a great week in Viking athletics.
Another edition as well. We don't baby nobody here on this podcast here. And we certainly appreciate everyone tuning in for Inside Princeton Vikings Athletics here on VikeNation.org and ESP Media powered by Sidearm Sports.